welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings on YouTube. Piro's page. Anyway, maybe we'll play some of that crap later, just for fun. So much this week, right? Happenings in the YouTube atheist community, and yeah, stick and fun, yeah. Anyway, good old days, but they were really the bad old days in many respects. Not much accomplished, I don't think, in much of these conversations. And so that's sort of the theme of the week, was just the realization that, there's just this interacting with individuals is not really very productive, because you end up doing 15,000 different subjects, and there's no order to the conversation, and there's no laying of the foundation, because that's really where the problems begin, is the whole nihilism thing. There's no point in talking about anything with the nihilist types, the subjectivists, the value relativists, however you want to describe them. That whole class of people who think there's no truth we're living in, no facts, no describable reality when it comes to what's happening here on Earth in terms of the experience of the feeling bits. Even having that, you have to really go all the way back, because people like Piro won't even understand the distinction between matter and a fully formed, neurologically possessive, possessing feeling organism. He's going to try to make them comparable and somehow playing some similar game, some sort of similar form of matter. And I've made these arguments all over the place, and in bits and pieces, but it really has to be put into some sort of progressive staircase of understanding, because it's just so deep, the misunderstandings and the certain words that just are so poisonous, and even life is one of them. Because most of the things we call life, I mean, you're either, it's like picking a religion or something and saying it's God. It's almost like there are so many types of life form on Earth, and they are fundamentally different. A single cell is called a living thing, and yet it functions entirely in a different reality than a hundreds of billions of cells in a human organism. They're alive in a fundamentally different way. It's just, there's no point in comparing one cell of a leaf to a tree. There's no point in calling those two things the same thing. They just have nothing really in common, except one is made of the other one. And they have the common purpose of, the tree exists to really replicate just one cell. And, understanding that origin is just so important to understanding anything about what we're doing here and how we're doing it. Because you have to kind of understand that everything we're structured to be is really designed for that minimalist purpose, that tiny purpose. And we're valuing the part that is just an indirect consequence, a byproduct of that purpose. In terms of having experience was only, the only function of it was to create this learning device, and so I've made some references to that concept of understanding where learning came from and how it evolved. And so, I mean, all this stuff is just, if people have loop-de-doo or fucked up perceptions of what we are, in terms of what we are as mechanical devices, then yeah, they're not going to really understand the game we're in, or how to play a good game. That would be my argument. So all the drama, there's just so many layers of the stuff. So yeah, I've kind of said, okay, I'm going to take a break from Anaconda VOD, because, He has no interest in the rules of being reasonable or rational, in the sense that you have to have evidence for something to argue for it, and you can't just say because 1 in a million of something is a certain way, I'll describe the whole thing like that 1 in a million. I mean, that's just a nonsensical non-starter, essentially. Or to say something isn't definable as what it is, 999,000 times out of a million, it does one simple thing, and then to say because it doesn't do it every single time, therefore I don't have to acknowledge that it does that thing, that kind of stuff. It's just so bad that there's just no room for conversation. And then Piro is, as I've pointed out every few years, every 2 or 3 years, I point out, gee, this is just a frustrating, pointless exercise. He has his philosophy, and that's fine. I have my philosophy, and there really shouldn't have been any. He certainly has no hope of persuading me of his nonsense, because that's what it is. That parameciums are feeling, or that that somehow you can just magically point to a future, or just diagram it on a piece of paper, and then just say we're going to get there. You have to show how you can get there, and he's never interested in anything like a practical plan. So yeah, we've just always, like I said, those are conversations that are just pointless. I had a whole debate series. I still have links to it in certain places, but we're arguing about free will and determinism, and it was just it's a pointless exercise because he just kept using fake jargon, not recognizing that the only 2 words in the phrase are free and will, and both of those one of them is made of nothing, free, and the other one doesn't have anything to do with anything free. It just has to do with a perception of me doing what I've concluded I'm going to do, and we call that a will. Whoever wins, whatever bullshit inside of me wins. In terms of an output, we call that a will, and there's just no point. It doesn't describe anything. It describes an output, and it just doesn't describe anything about how it was created or what it's made out of. So anyway, but these are all arguments I've had over and over, and it's just, you're just saying, well, obviously it's just not going to work. And diagnosing the tripping points, I guess is all I'm saying, is the important part. So if you just spell it out, then you can find out how quickly you get a fail in terms of an error, in terms of premises. So spell out the axioms, make the axioms progressively a little tiny bit more complicated, a little more narrow, a little bit more narrow, a little bit more narrow, and eventually these people will raise their hand and say, nope, I can't go for that one, and then you know where the problem is. Because there is always some underlying, as I'm saying with Piro, I think there's definitely some underlying theme. He has some Disneyland bullshit in his head of a reality, and he keeps projecting that over this reality and forcing this reality to comply with his I wish it were so bullshit. And that's somewhere in that goes down to this idea of making consciousness into some sort of special function rather than all it really is, which is a whip to force individuals to do stuff. It was kind of funny. I just jumped through his video, and the dog apparently ate something fairly important, and he was doing his yelling at the dog thing, and I had thought of that just a few minutes before in terms of the value, the idea of value, and the idea of having a mechanism of reward and punishment. And as I keep saying, the reward part is the part that just never really shows up, essentially. Most of the rewards are the absence of punishment. And in thinking about that, I was thinking about what people do with their animals. And that, the word no is used, 9 to 1. 9 times out of 10, you're going to say no to a pet rather than, oh yes, what a wonderful pet you are. So it's, way sided on one side. The no is the real dominant thing. And in the animal organism as it first as just the first tingles of an ouch formed. That's what it was. It made a distinction between a state and then the other state, which was somehow worse than this state. And that separation genetically just grew and grew and grew until it created these two things, which were state and bad state. And that was really what the mechanism was. And so any movement from the bad state to the positive state was going to be perceived as good, and any movement to the negative state as bad. But it was really just creating that little bit of separation, and then once you create that crack, it was just, nature just exploited the fact that it could use the difference between those two states to create punishment and the real reciprocal, which is absence of punishment. So anyways, but these are, I think these are theoretical descriptions of our reality that are solid in terms of they're difficult to logically dissect into irrelevancy or mush or garbage. They have some integrity as being consistent with what we see in the world, and this is how we function, and this is what we're made out of. And Piro's description doesn't go for that, because that's negative. And he has a unicorn coming to the rescue view of reality. So anyway, then there's fake Sagan, and the obvious problems in trying to, what's the use of him now. Certainly I lost interest when he became an anarchist, because that was just plain silly. But it's all just plain silly. I mean, religion is just plain silly, so there's not much to, there's very little to say, yes, there's a human being I can relate to. Because the only thing we have in common maybe is the fact that we've had to live non-comfortable lives to get to here. We've survived things, and that's all we've done is, we've survived. We haven't, in a sense, thrived beyond our little moments. And I'd certainly say he's made more reckless mistakes than I have. So, he's bought more lottery tickets in a way, more investment in hope and whatnot maybe. But regardless, that's not the point of what I'm saying, though, is that we don't, again, there's no common perception of reality in terms of what game we as humans are really playing, and what our psychologies will permit and not permit, and what our intellect can accomplish in terms of saying that once we have some facts and some knowledge, then we can have kind of a rational conversation about reality. So anyway, part of what comes up is this whole Trump thing, because he's still defending it. And so again, first he accuses it's Obama's fault. Obama's so bad that we deserve a Trump. And then it's the whole Hillary argument. Now he's just bringing up in the comments. First saying Hillary's a billionaire, which she's not. She's a millionaire, and it's a terrible thing, them acquiring all those millions for doing very little work. But she did work as Secretary of State. She did blah, 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 blah. They bring up all this stuff, the emails, and they really don't understand. It's not like there's 30,000 emails about all the crap she was, some sort of shenanigans. It's that they're all the emails that are personal. So that's like it's like me saying to you, let me have 4 years of all your telephone conversations. And that means all the conversations you had with your sister, about your brother, and all the ones you had about your husband, with your daughter, and all the ones and I mean, obviously a person would have an incentive to say, no, you can't have all my personal conversations. That's just going to create chaos in my personal life. That's not very practical. So you can understand that once and I'm sure she's also taken out of those lots of Podesta, emails where they were talking, hardball politics, and but again, if you think that you would want all of your conversations made public, I don't think you would, and I think you would try to say, no, fuck that. So look, the huge mistake was made in mixing business with her personal life, trying to find a simple system, and there's no simple system because of this whole shenanigans business that goes on in government. And it's going to continue to be a problem. I mean, if you think the problem is now solved, I think you're fooling yourselves that this is going to keep coming up again, because people, it's just too difficult to do business if you have to do your business through all these different streams, and you can't do it in any, you have to do all business here and all personal here. It's just going to make it, it's not very practical, I'm just saying. So the right to know has to have some kind of limitations on it. Can't just be sledgehammers and such. But anyway, but for all, look, like I said, Hillary's an asshole. There's just no doubt about it. But the point is who is she going to install as a government? It would be classic DNC bullshit. This conservative wing of the Democratic Party, certainly the business-friendly wing. So it would be a weak Republican. A moderate Republican is the worst-case scenario. And clearly the worst case scenario with Trump is a completely fascist, extreme Republican. So in my opinion, there's just no argument about who's going to be capable of doing more damage. I mean, Trump's going to dig up, people who still, their brains are still in 1748, and he's going to put them on the courts. There's going to be a big mess made here. And again, all of their people are going to be all capitalist friendly. So
could be a new post.
You're not going to get anything good happening.
Such.
Yes, we really don't need the commentary, but I'm not going to bother. Probably some asshole just saying stupid shit, because frankly, everybody's pretty fucking stupid. Let's see, maybe you should promote an alternative lifestyle for people called Life Plan. At least we're better than nothing. I don't even know what that means. Man, you really don't have any clothes. That's why you are naked all the time. Well, I'm not naked, actually. I'm wearing something. Stuff you people worry about. Hey, I didn't mean anything by my comment the other day. Oh, you mean where you're ragging on me about being a socialist or something? I just wanted to hear more in depth on your ideas of cheap labor overseas, because you skipped over that part. No, I didn't skip over it. I've been over it 4 million times. And I wish I could have written speeches for Hillary Clinton, because I think there's ways of explaining the fact that this is a world problem. All over the world, the rich are creating this class war. They're driving the middle class out of existence. All they want is rich people and poor people. That's the world they're trying to create. Sorry. Should have taken care of that before I made the video. Breathing exercises or something. So yeah, this problem of cheap labor in countries that have what could you call them? Inadequate government. Not enough capacity for the people to protect themselves from the exploitation, I guess you could argue. Not enough, either not enough democracy or not enough intelligence, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're already heading there in the sense that we have a democracy, and the democracy just elected a billionaire, okay, who cheats on his taxes and all the rest of it, President of the United States. So, I mean, it's kind of even hard to say that democracy will fix the problem, because apparently the exploited, the slaves, will actually vote for the master. That sort of took place with the whole Reagan thing, Lots of people who were getting kicked out of their, lots of the first unions to being destroyed, the first, and the middle class really being squeezed, and they thought Ronald Reagan was going to be their savior, when all he was going to do is make the rich richer. But anyway, this is a world problem, and you just can't, there's no practical way to solve it inside the United States. The United States has to solve it by, arguing with the world. It has to fix the external environment. It can't do it by fixing any internal environment. Again, unless you want to, use North Korea as your blueprint, and realize that if you close your borders and pretend the world out there doesn't exist, it's going to take you quite a while to first adapt to that, do the internal investment and infrastructure necessary to build the plants, get them all going back up again. It's going to be very expensive. And then you're not going to be able to create a product that you can export. So it's going to be all an internal trade. And the rest of the world is going to progress much faster than you, because the fact is exploitation works. It does get you to the future faster. Cutting corners and all that stuff, it works. Unfortunately, slavery worked. It got a ton of land made productive very cheaply. And yeah, if you did it the right way, it would have taken a lot longer and would have been a lot more expensive. These are just facts. I mean, and the only way you can fix this problem is to fix it externally. Because realistically, you're not going to sit there in your bubble and say, I don't want progress. I don't want something, I don't want to pay 1/3 the price or 1/10 the price. So that's where the argument has to be made. Is the world needs to be fixed, not America. But anyway, and so the civilized countries have to start there. And I think there's enough civilization in the United States and Russia and Europe to, at least on this subject, be able to tell the rest of the world what direction they're going to head in. And that direction is going to be, they're going to preserve the quality of life of working people. They're going to defend it and protect it. And until they do that, it's not going to happen. So those countries all have to do the opposite of what they're doing now, which is, buying into right-wing propaganda, and then protect themselves from left-wing bleeding hearts. I mean, the argument's always been the same. I mean, there were the fascists on one end and the tree huggers on the other end. The people who want everything for everybody for free, and the people who want everything for a very few at the expense of everyone. And those two extremes are the only things you want to make sure you don't choose. And I guess my argument is we've obviously chosen one of those extremes. It's as the case scenario is as bad as like a Green Party actually getting elected or something, because they'll do nothing practical. They'll just spend a ton of money. Even now, they're I heard somewhere they're gonna forgive a ton of student loans, and these subsidies are just so destructive. What's his face? I could look it up. All right, look it up. I don't know why I can't remember his name. Skid Row radio guy. Yeah, so he says, why is socialist a pejorative? Well, because it really, most people's socialism has something to do with, like, I have a behavior, like I want to go skydiving and I want you to subsidize it, or I want to have pets and I want you to subsidize it, I want to have this and I want you to subsidize it. It's even the idea of people have children and they force people who don't have children to pay for them. That kind of socialism, in the sense that you're going to take away people's individuality and take away the idea of having responsibility for your recreations and such. It's like mountain climbers. Well, if you climb a mountain, either there's going to be an agreement that we don't have to send helicopters to rescue you and waste a whole bunch of money, or you should pay for it. There should be fees for mountain climbing that's commensurate to the fact that every now and then we have to go spend a big pile of money to rescue you. It's like the little yachters who get stuck out in the ocean and the Coast Guard has to go rescue them. It can get very expensive, and everybody else is paying for that. And why should the regular working man be paying for somebody who has yachting trouble? Subsidizing the fun of yachting. That's bullshit. So that kind of socialism, I think, is legitimately found to be a little bit repugnant. That we all, like, even the healthcare system or something, like everybody's entitled to everything. Isn't that what that just turns into? Everybody's worth $1 million. So if you get sick enough, we'll spend $1 million to keep you alive. I don't want to do that. I mean, I wouldn't advocate spending $1 million to keep myself alive, and I certainly wouldn't spend $1 million to keep any of you assholes alive. I mean, it's just a fact. I don't see anybody on this planet worth keeping alive. You're all failing pretty dismally. Certainly not worth $1 million. So that's why socialist is a pejorative, because it really doesn't have anything to do with any effort to preserve individuality, or any real notion that where the money comes from is work, that work is supposed to be rewarded, that work should get the paycheck, and that the worker should decide what to spend that money on. And I think that's a more valuable way to look at it, having an earned economy. And socialism really doesn't say earned economy. It says something different, and I'm not for that difference. So even to me, socialist has sort of become a pejorative, because it really doesn't mean what we need to do, which is take the money from the rich and give it to the workers. And yes, workers' parties have been just as polluted by corruption and evil. There's lots of people who, throughout history were supposed to be defenders of the workers, and they just became defenders of their own graft, their own personal interest. So it's all dangerous, but there's really no other way for me to say it. I have to really use the word worker to describe workers. People who do productive work, people who go to work, who inconvenience themselves to produce in the world for a paycheck. Yes, those are the important people. The most important. Not that everybody isn't important, but they're the most important. They're the ones who are sacrificing are the ones who should be compensated the best. First, they should go first. They should have the first piece of the pie, if there's a way to say it. But yeah, and socialism, like I said, doesn't really say that. Anyway, so that was a sort of a sidetrack, or something like one. So let's see, I did the fake Sagan, I did the Pierrot, I did the Anaconda VOD, so we're kind of left, the Brett Keane is sort of irrelevant, Tommy from the Bronx, yeah, they had little drama thingies, and they did, and they all hugged and everything. It's all quite disgusting. But I have no use for either, in a way. So then you're stuck with this amazing atheist thing and this Tommy Sotomayor guy, and they're all, it'd be good if they have the legal, a good, honest legal confrontation, so the law gets defined. And so I don't understand. I mean, I really don't have a huge amount of interest in listening to the Thomas Sotomayor guy's videos, but apparently he's pursuing the DMCA, and he should. He's by obligation, he should. And then the drunken peasants are going to sue for some sort of damages because they are claiming a false DMCA, but if he pursues it, then they can't claim false, but maybe they can go by prior behavior or something. But that's still going to get a little bit dicey. Just because you're allowed to claim, you have a person's allowed to file the claim if they have a sincere belief that you're violating their copyright. Now, if you claim fair use and they say, well, I still don't think you have a fair use, but I know I can't win in court, and they don't pursue it, I suppose a court might find that acceptable. As when I sued, I never filed a DMCA that I didn't intend to go to court with, and so the only one where the person claimed fair use, I did file the court papers. So I mean, I did what the law requires. But like I said, the law has been so muddled because YouTube was doing all this stuff preemptively, which was violating the law anyway. So the whole Digital Millennium Copyright Act was just a piece of shit because nobody was obeying it. So I think it's going to be a hard argument to make that if somebody isn't in strict compliance, you've got them or something. And again, the drunken peasants' whole show is sort of made on, they make profit off of mocking other people's video clips, which is sort of as soon as you're making money, you're in trouble on a fair use claim. So as soon as you're making money, fair use gets really weak. So you really, really, really have to be careful when you're making money. If you're making money, it has to be so clear that what you're doing is educational or has profound social value. And just saying, it just makes your argument a lot weaker. And especially when somebody else's material is the substance of it. Now, the existing copyright cases are way on the side of the drunken peasants, in the sense that they allowed whatever it was, Two Crew Blue to steal Roy Orbison's song and make money off of it, and it was just a clear theft of his song. I mean, it was pretty obvious, and the court permitted that. So some of the legal precedent says, yeah, this claim of fair use is pretty wide open. I mean, you can almost claim anything as fair use. Spitting in somebody's face is like somehow free speech now. It's almost that bad in terms of what the legal precedents are. So I'd say advantage for the drunken peasants. But then you have their behavior where Paul Ego, lies to a hotel clerk. They drop documents in the chat on people, something they claim to be a bad thing to do. Okay, so they find out what hotel he's at, they find out what floor, what room, all this kind of, well, they didn't go that far. But finding his real name and doing all this bullshit to do nothing other than harass him. And it's really clearly harassment. He's at his work, so to speak. It's his job making these stupid videos, and that's his performance art, and they deliberately wish to interfere in it. So I think they're going to have a hard argument to make they weren't just fucking harassing, and harassment's not going to be called fair use. So, but anyway, be interesting. So anyway, that's the last I'll say on it, because no one gives a shit. They all just pick sides, and it's unfortunate. This is going to be, a bunch of white thugs, and they are kind of thugs. They're supposed to all be interested in gay rights and perversion and shit, but then they'll use words, they're just kind of gross in terms of their language, and giving fodder to the bad rhetoric of the opposite side. And they do the same thing on race, in the sense that they're essentially they're contributing to the shallow thinking that exists. And so although they're claiming hey, I'm so comfortable with race, I can say the N-word, and I can do this, and I can do that, they're just fueling the very thing they're saying they're comfortable with. And so in that sense, they're looking a little bit like they do have a real problem. And so this is going to get a little ugly, in the sense that it's just going to be white thugs against a black man. And now you're just going to have a judge who's going to be, well, if he's a little bit racist, the white guys win. And if it's black judge, black guy wins, and then it's all suspect. And so it's going to be hard to tell whether we're going to get a straight up decision, because now race has gotten thrown into it, which is unfortunate. I mean, you really don't want the few legal cases that actually get created. There's so few of them, and you really don't want them to be about race, because that's just going to create all kinds of clouds. So anyway, but yeah, you can just, I can't really imagine even a conservative, Boy Scout leader type judge finding the drunken peasants a sympathetic, sympathetic. They're just drugs, all kinds of bullshit. They just look like a bunch of thugs, a bunch of nerdy thugs, fat thugs. And so, I don't know. So they're going to have to hope we got somebody with a brain who wants to actually do anything with this case anyway. I mean, I haven't seen much in the courts that indicates judges really want to make decisions. So I see that the judge is probably just going to negotiate a settlement, which will be, why don't you just shut up? Why don't you just shut up and get the fuck out of my face? Something like that. And the lawyers win, but I don't think TJ is probably not even paying them. But yeah, they raised a ton of money, so you're just saying this is just another racket, This is another way for TJ to make money. I'm fighting for your freedom, your freedom to harass people. to be a troll. Not the freedom to really do anything called fairly used video clips, because he's not really in any kind of fair way using video clips. So, you know, it's just more pretend to be a cause. You know, like he pretended to, he's going to create a new YouTube for us, and he's going to do this and do that, do all these things, and all he does is put the money in his pocket. And obviously that's the internet. I mean, you know, the people's causes are just so stupid. I mean, they either fall for, you know, what do you call it, poster child. You know, they get suckered by a cute face into throwing money away, or they get suckered by, you know, absolutely con artist rhetoric that somebody's coming to save you or help you, and all they're doing is help you open your wallet and let the money fall out. But anyway, no doubt an unpopular critique. Shame, shame. So what else? Alright, so I'll play some of this Puro thing and we'll call it a video. I'm just going to jump through little pieces of it. I mean, they were, you know, they're calling me a narcissist, and therefore I'm just like Trump. So if you're a narcissist in the sense that you have a high opinion of yourself, that doesn't mean you can't be intelligent at all. I mean, Trump's an imbecile. That's the problem with Trump. His narcissism isn't the problem. The problem is he's an idiot. So they don't really identify what the problem is with his narcissism. It's like having a gun, right? I mean, somebody who knows what it is to own a gun and keeps it locked and protects it from criminals and does all these nice things, and the other asshole just shoves it in his back pocket and, you know, loaded with no safety. That's the difference, right? It's you know, the narcissism isn't the evil. It's the stupidity in a narcissist that's the problem. I can be a narcissist and still know, you know, I'm not more important than somebody else. That I'm not gonna push somebody else into traffic so I don't get hit by a car, that kind of thing. In fact, I would probably do exactly the opposite, in spite of the fact that I'm a narcissist. Or I might do just the opposite because I'm a narcissist. Because, you know, I wouldn't want to leave a grenade unjumped on, you know, because that wouldn't fit my self-image as a hero or something like that. So, but anyway, it's just Great Text being such a cunt, and now he is officially, you know, a cunt. I hate that he's using this name Gail. You know, that's my twin sister's name. It's just, I hate that.
There's a video of a black guy running away from the cop. The cop shoots him in the back, plants a stun gun on him, and he's going to walk free.
Oh, whatever. We don't know if that really happened. But anyway, continuing.
Not all of them, but this Goldman Sachs guy is like what everybody...
Why would somebody plant a stun gun on somebody? I mean, really, there's not too many criminals using stun guns.
You know, all the Trump voters were worried about Hillary doing. Well, you know what? If Hillary had done it, she'd be giving him cover. You know what I'm pissed off about? I'm sick of... Maybe this is the anti-SJWs could have a little victory lap, but they probably won't.
Oh, you're an idiot.
Well, then you're disavowing your own vote.
Okay, wait. I'll say this.
Well, except for that, I really have always hated the Clintons from when Bill...
The establishment Democrats are really... The establishment Democrats are really strong, though. I mean, like, now they're losing quite a bit of power, but, like, they were really strong before.
I don't even know what that means, establishment Democrats. The point is that the Democrats ended up doing the whole blue dog thing. The blue dogs won, and they were all the conservative, business-loving Democrats. Oh, unfortunately, this isn't working now. It was working before. I could just jump through here. But I guess it ain't gonna let me do that anymore. So anyway, there were some little inmendum rags, but it's the same old crap. And then Puro brings up his stupid land tax, or he brings up his, you know, stupid, let's cut the country in half. Let's, you know, break the country into pieces. That's not a problem. You know, I mean, these just completely useless, non-starter kind of crap. Like, you know, yes, let's make two weak countries that hate each other. That would be so cool. That would help so much to have two weaker countries that don't like each other. Yeah, good idea. Not.
It's, well,
oh, there
let's
we go.
say as scary.
That's scary, man. Well, it worked for a minute. Do 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 do. Just broken. Mom, it's broken. Oh, my internet connection is, yeah, okay. My firewall has killed my internet connection. I see, so that's the problem. I don't even know if it's worth doing this anyway, so maybe I won't bother. Let's see, was there anything else I had to take care of? I think the dramas.
As is every European citizen, I am a European citizen by law. Can they strip me of my European citizenship? Who knows? Nobody's asking that question, because nobody's got the answer to it.
Well, who cares?
The stereotypical way. I think they're like middle class right wing.
Who cares?
I honestly think that the history of feudalism is a good counterbalance to that right wing force, because people remember.
Hitler is a good...
$1 billion of government contracts are not going to get it, and they're going to be pissed. And unless their bank account's already empty, they're going to use what they have left to try to fuck Trump up the ass. And Trump doesn't think that there isn't a law about conflict of interest, but in reality, it's in the Constitution. The emolument clauses are...
Yeah, whatever.
Okay,
They're going to be
what do you mean?
interpreted by the
Because
court.
Obama said no on that.
Well, that's...
Let's jump back.
They didn't filibuster.
I mean,
Obama
there is
had...
no political platform that is correct for the 21st century, and that's because
Yeah, not the two
That
parties.
Yeah.
Gotta get rid of the two-party system.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it's cold comfort. I'm not saying it means it's...
Yeah, cold comfort.
Does that make sense? I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yes. He says, "You're a beautiful man, and I love you." And he doesn't wear a shirt in his videos as like a statement or something. Like, so he is.
so it's not like a Mendham. He's just really hot.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it is.
I think that's what...
This is all people who are... Not one of them has an actual camera running, which is quite funny. But anyway.
Who Brett King really was, but still, it was a funny memory in my train of thought. But, and so now he's got God TV or whatever, he became a theist, and, like, that's a big change, I don't think.
Right.
Everything is online now.
Not theist.
Well, you're
Unless
saying the
you-
underground is online?
Yeah,
Unless
Point, yeah, the $7 million or whatever comes from the state. They might...
Yeah, it was something Piro said like a couple of weeks ago. He said something about underground comics and all this kind of stuff, and it was just so funny. Like, he thinks we're going to go back to the 60s, and the revolution is going to start in, hookah parlors or something, and, like the a tiny minority of people are going to change the world and blah 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 blah. No, not going to happen. Artists will do it. Yeah, the artists will save the day. The artists will come to the rescue.
Yeah, and that's not a problem. Like, if you make a flirtatious comment towards a woman,
What
or
was
whatever,
his thing with the
like,
underage? Was that like...
Oh, he was involved in some. I think the rumor is that it was a sting or something that he was involved in.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so they're talking about whatever, Hannibal or something. Anyway, enough of all that crap. Wasn't as good an idea as I thought it would be. Fuck it. Just same old crap. Like I said, there's nothing new under the Puro sun. So yeah, I think I've covered everything I need to cover here. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we'll just go on another week and keep plugging away, and probably try to focus on the physics this week and try not to get distracted by these idiots and assholes and such. So, till next time. From here in Mendham. Yeah, that's probably okay. Fuck you and such. And you probably deserve that. You probably do. I mean, we all deserve it. I mean, I was thinking that too. I had to install had to install a new faucet, and I just don't have the back for this under sink shit. Well, anyway, and that occurred to me. It's just that I was thinking about the whole Trump thing, the whole futility of everything, and how everything's just so awful, and I was just thinking that, yeah, well, Gary, you deserve it. You're human, right? I mean, I'd like to not be profiled as a human, but I am. I am a human. And my kind is just such a bunch of shit, that it's perfectly reasonable that I would be, miserable, and that I'll have a miserable death. It's perfectly fair, because we just couldn't deserve worse. I mean, we're just horrible, monstrous, stinking, crappy shit. I came up in a conversation the other day with somebody, about World War II and all that stuff, and all these, 18 to 22-year-olds just, thrown away this brutally hard way. I mean, really, you really had to have balls, to go storming those beaches and shit, because you weren't gonna live. It's just real shit, And then even World War I, even worse, in terms of the whole trench thing, and the whistle blows and you go and you're just not coming back. Most of you, anyway. And how many times? I mean, just imagine the guy who's lived through it a few times and just knows his number's got to be coming up. I mean, how many times can he roll snake eyes in a row and get away with it? And just horror, and yet, Well, anyway, so the thought was, what would they be thinking? That they went through all that shit, that they, never got laid, died in this horrible way, spent, years in these terrible places, doing this terrible, awful stuff. And if they could, look at us now, and just how disgusted. I died for this? I died for this plastic, synthetic, cheap world you have? Disgusting.
Could be a new post.
I mean, that's all. I mean, that says it right there. We have not done anything of merit, to pay for the price that's been paid for it. It's a huge price. The human price alone, huge. And we've embarrassed ourselves. So yes, I deserve the steamroller, like everybody else. Because I'm one of you stupid, crappy, shitty humans. I mean, if aliens attacked, you would blame all the aliens. There's just no way not to. So, just the way it is. Life isn't fair. Is this all you can do? Maybe you are afraid to move at a higher level in antinatalism. I don't know. Whatever that means. Or maybe you are selfish to care only about you and your cats. I mean, just amazing. You have too much space in your home. You can adopt a kid. It's idiotic. Teach everything you can. Why? Oh, I should make a slave. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be just super. How else to satisfy these genetic urges to have kids? I don't have any genetic urge. If you don't agree with castration. Well, again, I don't have any genetic urge to have kids. I have a genetic urge to have sex, you idiot. You've done this before. You keep making these same idiotic arguments. You don't have to be castrated not to have kids, you retard. Self-satisfaction is not enough. Having cats is a waste of space. I don't have cats because I chose to have cats. I had cats because the cats were in the world like a human, just like a kid. So here he says, those cats will die. This tells you how you haven't taken it to the next level, asshole. those cats will die anyway, and your work will die with you. Well, the fucking kid would die anyway, idiot. And again, if you think you can, if you think indoctrination is the way to win, then you're willing to commit a bigger crime to prevent a lesser crime, in a sense. So fuck you. Yeah, well, the whole fact that you can adopt kids when you're not rich, I don't know what that means, but that's pretty stupid. And you can get some benefits. Yeah, well, that's really bad to pay people to take. That's fostering then, and that's how you get, I mean, that's how you get racketeers like Brett Keane will, jump on that bandwagon. You can educate that child. Yeah, you mean you can, abuse it. Anyway. At the same time, you will satisfy one of your genetic needs. I should have taken the refresh off. I gotta remember how to use my own website. I don't mean to tick you off. Well, really, fuck you. I didn't mean. I just wanted to hear more of your ideas. You don't have to block my IP. Okay, well, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't think you have anything. Well, whatever. People are just irritating. So is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, till next time. Sorry, I left and then I got drawn back in by the castration loony. Anyway, till next time and such. Yeah, I'm tired for some reason. Fuck. Really forcing it. Anyway, till next time.